way since 1997.
Yes, we have. Yes, we have.
In that little bitty hotel where we did that, not knowing whether this experiment of IMATS would work, you know, trying to get makeup artists to come together from around the world to celebrate our art, and luckily it was like Woodstock. Isn't that great? That day was really spectacular. I can remember afterwards, out in the sunlight, you know, looking at it and touching it, and it's like, wow, what is this? You know, this new exciting material. That was a special day because everyone who came from around the world and saw that, they all went back inspired, and it gave them, I think, the confidence really to explore it and take it on. I think you really did. The rock that was thrown into the pond and the ripples that came from you bringing that makeup.
I was horrified that day because that didn't, for me, for us,
yes,
that makeup didn't work. Because it
You've
was
told
too,
me that once before.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, I think much of it had to do because we were in LA. We don't get sun like that up here in the Great White North. When we do, but the color. I wanted to put her in the audience so that she just looks like some middle-aged woman out sitting in the audience like normal. But when I looked out, she was the only one without a tan. Everybody had a tan. She stood out like she just got out of the hospital. You know, it was like, it was not good, but it worked. I'm glad you liked it.
Well, it was great. I remember that day well. I remember in the front row center was Dick Smith was sitting there, and I think Rick Baker was in the room. There was all these leaders in the industry that were all in the first few rows. Greg Canham sitting there.
Really? I never knew any of those people were there.
And it was 3-4 hours. It just kept going, and it was like standing room only in the room, and it was hot. I don't know if you remember that. It was so hot in the room because there were so many bodies, but everybody just hung out and because they were just fascinated. In fact, some of colleagues that I know from England that helped start the London IMATS was because they came to see your presentation. Well, let's do this. I've got something special for you guys. I have a clip from when Gordon was with us in 1997 at that first IMATS. And for that moment, actually, I need to just let you know that most of us in the industry had never seen a silicone makeup in person. We've seen some photos, like I showed you in the magazine, but most of us in Hollywood had not seen that. So can we roll that and show that to them, guys?
Catching bubbles is really, really easy. I think I discussed before there are maybe feasibilities of an adhesive that we could actually float around. Would make this process, we cut it in half. Right now, I doubt very much anybody on the planet could put that on in less than 2 or 3 hours. But if you had an adhesive that you could actually move around, you could probably put it down in an hour, maybe even as little as a half an hour. We now go up to locking down the upper lip and starting to lock the nose, which is something we should have done in the first place, was start at the nose. We start at the lips in this particular case, and in a very short period of time realized that was a stupid idea. And we needed to move on to locking down. Now, all this stuff's real obvious. I don't want to talk about it, but you see, just see the.
Does the weight of the silicone distort the face?
Distort the face?
Yeah.
No. Well, I think anything hanging on your face would, but I don't think it affects it in any abnormal way.
I haven't noticed anything yet. When I do, he's going to hear about it.
Can you punch hair for eyebrows and stuff too?
No. And the reason being is that there's a gel inside, and that gel's one seriously lovely, lovely lubricant. And that hair will just slide straight through it out the other side as well as anything. But you can glue to it. You can crazy glue hair to it. I mean, you can get crazy in the sense that you've got a whole new surface.
Are those glued down like this?
Yeah, and lace literally disappears. As good, if not better, in some cases, depending on the level of translucency, than on real skin.
They're all looking at you, and
So stipple, beard hair, things like that?
Stipple, beard hair, all that kind of thing is no problem, no. You can literally treat this subject now the same way you would treat an actor, but that actor now... I'm sorry.
No.
It was a good joke,
It was great.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to keep clicking this here. Yes?
You ever tried like flocking out hair for a beard using like electrostatic?
No, I never have, and that's just from pure, unadulterated, abject fear of it not working, and I've fucked the whole thing. You know? But I cannot see no reason why it wouldn't work.
I'll let you know if we try.
Yeah. Eyes are critical, always are. And we're starting at the center and working out, always being aware of the weight of that piece and keeping the weight off the face so that it's not hanging. Any kind of weight will distort the form. What? Yeah.
So far, the only adhesive that you've found that works with this is the 355?
No, the only adhesive I have ever used is 355. I think you could probably use any kind of adhesive you wanted. I mean, I have never wanted to ever run the risk of, ooh, I should have used the 355. I just know it sticks like stink and it's clear and it's flexible. I would prefer, quite frankly, not to use any adhesives. And that is a major effort for us now, is to take this technology and eliminate the adhesive, because the adhesive now is the only thing left that restricts the skin. This does not restrict the skin in any way. In fact, it is more flexible than the skin, or you can make it more flexible than skin. So therefore, the only thing now that is stopping the actor from moving or expressing or muscle movement going through is that adhesive. And it, sorry, go ahead.
Could an actor accidentally puncture the piece?
As easily as you could puncture your own skin, but you know, it would take a fair bit of, you know, you'd really have to whack yourself or stab yourself or something like that. But no, you can, no, this is, you can grab this. No, I mean, this is for theatrical purposes, for performance purposes, the whole idea that I can be aggressive here. Sorry, the only, I mean, this is critical for the actor. This is critical. I mean, one of the major, I mean, Carolyn being, like, my background is the theater. My background is the actor, and the whole idea of having something stuck to my face that I can't touch, or I can't move so much because it's going to get makeup on, or whatever. There's no makeup will rub off on wardrobe or anything like that. She could wash her face. She could be in the shower. I wouldn't advise that because I've never done any of that, but okay.
Speaking of wardrobe, have you ever had a problem with wardrobe rubbing a hole through your surface coat?
No, no, never.
What about lighting from the back? Like having a backlit profile? Does it fuzz?
No. If you put a huge
profile on her now, and out of the corner of my eye every once in a while, it seems to fuzz, like right.
I would say, if anything, what you're seeing as that fuzz would be that possibly the translucence, the opacity of the material is not opaque enough.
Okay.
Thanks. You can see here, like these are the things that get me going. Is as I'm putting this down, you can see all the actor's own skin tones, Carolyn's own skin tones are coming right through here. So, I mean, not through all the thick sculpted areas, but all the low points are picking up all of her red tones. I mean, she has virtually no or very little makeup on here. If this piece was a little thinner, You know, if this piece was, say, a little thinner, it'd be twice that. That one we did of Jimmy Woods was very, very thin. It went down and literally we had to do nothing to it. All the low points were his own lovely, the reds were all there. I didn't have to add anything in. And all the high points were lighter tones, and it was wonderful.
You say that it could pick up the actor's skin color right through the
Yeah.
But what if the actors for some reason end up getting like blemishes, you know, and
Then the blemishes come right through.
right through. There's no
Yeah.
way you can really touch
Yeah.
that up except for
Yeah.
makeup on top.
Then you're into a topical application. I mean, and bottom line, you can cover that in makeup and end up with the same thing as you would get with an actor covered in makeup. But in my experience, film is far too critical these days. I mean, it's very high grade reproduction, and it'll pick up nearly anything. Yeah.
What if your actor decided to go to the beach on the weekend and suddenly arrived back on set the following Monday with a radically different skin tone?
Next question. Yeah, you're in deep doggy doo-doo there. Yeah. It's the same. I mean, this is not a solution to all of those problems that have existed since the beginning of time. Whatever. The biggest problem I have, what you would have here, is say for example, is on the back of the neck. Same problem you get with any prosthetic. This back of the neck will just change colors constantly. You know, I get a little excited. It can turn bright red just with, you know, walking over to get a donut. Some of these guys, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about that, aside from constantly trying to change the color. So those basic kind of problems are consistent and aren't going to change. But that lovely undertone, where on the actor it may be unacceptable, under a prosthetic like this, may be fabulous, may be considerably better than had he not gone to the beach and he had no color, no red or whatever in his skin. But that brings me back to that whole premise of, and why it's so important to involve the makeup artist into this logic, is that the makeup artist now can make one of these. There's no toxic elements involved in it. You can literally sit over in the corner and make your membrane and color it up and do it. And if you find that your actor has indeed played golf for the last 3 days that he's been off and he's a whole different color, then you change the color of the prosthetic, given the director will allow you to do that. Otherwise, you're in big production meetings with the executive producers and stuff. But see here, I mean, this is love, you know, I mean, it's a lovely thing. And there she is. Thank you. Any questions before they throw you out unceremoniously? Yes.
Did you glue down the lace?
An absolute no-no. I use 355. But you know, 355. If you thin it out enough, you don't get that shiny thing. If you don't put enough down to have a shiny plastic coating, then you don't have a shiny plastic coating.
Upon removal, do you end up getting any of the feathered edge stuck on or any residual
No.
left over anywhere?
No. There was a point where, when we were building the prosthetics, where the bond, the mechanical bond from the membrane to the gel was too weak. And that was just one critical element before I think, is that the membrane that encapsulates that gel must be as flexible or reasonably as flexible as the gel it contains, or the surface friction of those two elements will you'll get a debonding. So it's not a bond. It's sort of a, I don't know what you call it, but it's like Velcro. Velcro is not a bond. You can rip it off. Yes.
Have you tried using this material in any epoxy molds?
Yes, I did, and I don't believe I had any trouble. We may have had a bit of a release problem with the epoxy mold, but I sort of lost it with the epoxy thing because I just had one of those situations where I needed to stick it in an oven, and it ruined my mold because I overheated it, and I said I didn't want to use epoxy for another couple of months just so my headache would go away.
How long has she been in the makeup?
We started this makeup,
Where is it?
once this goes on, if it goes on with a dry face and goes on cleanly and you don't have any bubbles in it, I don't have to touch her. I have very rarely had to touch anybody in this aside from the lips, and that's only because they wanted a big Whopper for lunch and they chewed their lips off. And that is a problem. That's a huge problem. Yes?
Have you gotten to the point where you can reuse adhesives?
No, we have not got to the point where we can reuse it, but all that will take is finding a membrane that is strong enough to do everything that I want it to do, plus be strong enough to come off. The removals in the last 2 or 3 times that we've done this have come off well enough that edge was not damaged. But the residue of glue on the back side of this thing, once it all folded over on itself and stuff. I mean, there's one in a bag that I've been passing around here. That's a perfect example, you know. I mean, yes.
Is it tin silicone?
Sorry?
The silicone, is it tin?
No, it's not. It's a platinum cured thing. Do not, under any circumstances, use tin. I think it's been proven a number of times. Like, cheap is cheap. Cheap materials are cheap materials. I've learned that the hard way. You know, if you want good materials that are not going to affect tissue, then you have to use materials that have been designed to not affect tissue, not to cast automobile parts or anything like that. Even though the cost factor is radically, radically different, one is designed for tissue and the other one is not. And there are no guarantees. There's no guarantees with any of these materials except they're the same materials that dentists shove down your throat. So I figure if it's good enough for that, then it's good enough for Carolyn. I mean, so see, with Carolyn here, I'd love to have 30 years experience as a makeup artist to now take this and make her up. Like go that next generation if needed, you know. In this case, it's not needed, but all it takes is the color of the skin underneath to be a little different, and/or you want to push a character. You want to treat it like a makeup artist now. You want to go in and make something a little different out of it. That was a ramble. Yes.
Did you try this on black skin yet?
Yes, I did, and it was a complete disaster. And only because I'm white. I have really, I do not have that reference. I do not wake up every morning and know what a black face looks like. I wouldn't attempt to make up somebody black. I have done it on 2 or 3 different occasions, but I have ended up having to make up completely over it. I've made pieces that I thought were perfect. The color match was perfect, and as soon as I put it on, it was just wrong. Because I am dealing with the color underneath coming through the color here, so I've got, you know, maybe what I was looking at is I didn't need to have the undercolor. I needed to have something considerably less so they didn't compound each other. What I found was as soon as I put the prosthetic on, the prosthetic was twice as dark as I thought it was going to be. And that's probably just because the color underneath has now just made it that much darker. So there's a lot of R&D involved there, a lot of R&D, yes.
Is there any way to dissolve the edges of the membrane?
No, no, but I'm only saying that because I'm using these particular membranes. The membrane that I use, if I put too much alcohol on it or something like that, I use these alcohol washes. If I put too much on it, it'll break. You know, I can get rid of little burrs. I can get little burr edges and stuff like that with alcohol. But there is nothing that will wash it away like gelatin or something like that. It does not have those luxuries. But all it takes, again, is somebody coming up with another membrane that actually will do that, and then you're there. Because we've come up with this mechanical bonding thing with the flocking, I mean, that's a critical element. It's critical enough that we've patented it, because it means now that you can take a gel and literally put any membrane that will actually cure without contaminating the gel against it. You don't have to worry about it having a chemical bond. And then that, I think, for us to be successful was the key. The rest of it was materials and playing and mixing back and forth, but to get over that hurdle of being able to choose our materials rather than be told that these are but these are the only ones that ever do that, was not good enough. It was certainly not good enough to actually solve the problem. And this is not necessarily solve the problem. You have to understand, this is the very beginning of this research. I mean, we've just been lucky enough to be able to get things out of the mold and actually make it work. I expect now and hope now that the industry, if I can make things like this clear enough, can move and take this information and make it better and better and better and better and better and better, and hopefully share that with me. So, you know, because I can't afford to do it anymore. Yeah.
Two questions.
Yes.
One, are you re-vacuumizing the...
Yes, absolutely.
And the second question is, have you attempted to try to draw it through using vacuum?
I've never had an application where I needed to draw it through. I've drawn urethanes through with vacuum. I've never needed to draw silicone through with a vacuum. But yes, the gels, you absolutely vacuum and you full vacuum. Now, and that's only because you've done this. You know, there's no other reason. It's not like a urethane or something like that where there's, you know, where you have to pull for sure. If you didn't mix it up, you wouldn't have to.
So you're cooling it, definitely cooling it before it hits, because you're mixing it, it's causing heat. And then not only that, you're vacuumizing it at that time that you have there, you should probably definitely cool it down or something.
We keep it in the fridge. Like, you know, when we're getting ready to do it, the first thing you do is you take your materials and you go and stick them in the fridge. And then you go and you build your membranes and you do it, and that takes a donkey's age. It takes like one person all day long, like 8 hours, to build one of these buggers. And mostly because no matter how many of them you've made, you're still figuring it out. You're still going, oh, I wonder if I did that instead, that might be, or whatever. And I insist in that on the studio that, you know, you don't race on at anything, because if you have blown it at any stage on this process, and you can blow the whole thing on any one of these stages, then bottom line, it's cost me a fortune, because you can't tell a producer that, it's all right, man, I just blew all my molds, and you know, I mean, you can't do that. So it's absolutely critical. And with this process, I can't get on the phone. I mean, the only person I can call, I get to call Dick and say, Dick, I just did this, what do you think? You know, and we throw it back and forth and stuff like that, but there's really nobody to ask that has an answer. Yeah.
Do you have any printed literature available on your R&D so far?
I do. Dick distributed the first technical notes in his course, and since then I've changed them a little bit, and they're available through Pink House, maybe, if their copying machine works. Otherwise, I can give them to you. Then those notes are a little different probably than what I've just talked about, because I wrote those a year ago, and the information here will be different. A little bit different, but the principles are the same. But the materials the material aspects of it are very, very straightforward. And whether you're going to build a prosthetic or not, and I say this from a very personal sense, whether you're building prosthetics or not, the impression material, the casting material, to me is one of the most, certainly the most important thing that's in my studio. It cuts my production time down by 1/10. You know, I can finish a mold in a day. I don't have to wait for something, I can wait all night or 16 hours for something to kick off or anything like that. I just go and I make my mold. In my studio, I don't have anybody that works in the motion picture industry. All of the people that work in my studio are fine artists, established, renowned, internationally well-known artists with galleries around the world, and they are hired specifically because they are the best at what they do. A different job will mean a different sculptor. Do you know what I mean? Somebody dealing with, if I'm dealing with high realism of a human being, of an actor, I will hire Evan Penny. There is no other person I've ever met in my entire life that I know that would actually work for me that could do that. If I'm dealing with something that is more animal-oriented, I would hire somebody like Tom Zarnaby out of Chicago or Arlene Smith and people like that. I very much have a great deal of respect for other people's talents. I mean, bottom line, let's be very realistic about this whole thing. I'm an actor. I'm a classically trained actor. I have never trained in any of this at any point in my time, and I have relied utterly on the expertise of other people. I do not expect that sculptor to know anything more than being a sculptor. I don't expect that mold maker to be anything but that mold maker, or that colorist to be anything more than a color. I will hire people specifically for their abilities to do a particular job. And it is my job to put those people together and end up with a final product. It is foolhardy for me to assume because I own the company that I'm supposed to go and do those sculpts. You know, people think I do those sculpts. People think all this happens all with one person. Nothing happens with one person. Nothing happens with one. You can't even get dressed in the morning all by yourself. Somebody had to make those pants. Do you know? I mean, it's just a simple thing. And in this world where you're dealing with something that is like DIT, you have to bring in every bit of expertise you possibly can. But once once the whole thing gets sort of set down, and you end up with these two molds, then to me you're in a very, this is the situation we're kind of in right now, and why I'm sitting here talking and stuff like that, is that now those two molds can get passed over to the makeup artist, to whatever, to the set logics. Rather than expecting these fine artists of the studio to come and now understand what happens in a motion picture set. It's a whole different world with a whole different set of disciplines and understandings and personalities and whatever. That I think the option of the makeup artist now being able to actually fabricate their own prosthetic is very exciting. Whether it's going to take a while for that to happen, I mean, as Dick well told me years ago, he says, well, you know, it took 10 years for foam, for high quality foam to get generally accepted. Even though, you know, when you work with it, it seemed, why isn't everybody picking up? It's just a matter of osmosis of people understanding and actually working with it. I mean, I personally have never made one of these prosthetics. With my own hands, I have not sat down and actually made it. So I'm looking forward to that myself.
The possibility of no membrane.
Very strong. Very, very, very strong. A surface membrane, always, because you always need something. Silicone is silicone is silicone is silicone. You're never going to be able to make up a silicone gel or have it stable, or you need a membrane over top of it to stabilize it, and also be the agent for which you're making up, and also to act as another layer of tension over top of that gel, which is the illusion of skin. It's gel underneath a stiffer area, the dead skin. Dead skin, live skin gel, dead skin membrane. Thank you very much.